Welcome to Turf Talk with Matt
and Casey.
And today we're going to bring you a video specifically about aeration and seeding. This is the perfect time of the year. So when you're watching this, we are at the very end of August, beginning of September. The end of August was very, very hot, very dry. And we're starting to get, well, there's a hurricane coming through Louisiana, so maybe some of that weather is pushing up on us, but we're starting to get more rain in the early parts of September, and the temperatures dropped pretty significantly. So we're starting to get into the prime time for seeding your lawn, whether that's be from aeration or slice seeding, or you're doing a full lawn renovation. Like right now is the best time of the year to seed. So getting into aeration and seeding, can you tell us a little bit about what aeration is? So somebody that's never had aeration, like, what are they to expect?
So what aeration is it's basically perforation of the lawn. We're going to run a machine across the lawn known as an aerator, and it has a spool of tines underneath it that what it does is it punches holes in the ground. They're about 1 inch in diameter, about 2 to 3 inches deep ideally. 2 inches is pretty good. And what it does is it aerates the lawn. It gets oxygen and airflow down into that root system. It's going to alleviate compaction by allowing an empty space for roots to enter into and to thrive. So you're going to get that nice deep rooting that you wouldn't normally see in a clay lawn. And we're going to introduce some new seed into the lawn, which is always great to introduce new life into the lawn. You know, as the lawn struggles through this part of the year, parts of it are going to die off. It's not going to maintain. Some of the older plants are going to expire. So we're going to put that seed down, and we're going to rejuvenate the life of that lawn.
You know, we get questions all the time that, you know, a homeowner says, oh, well, my yard looked perfect 15, 20 years ago when I moved into the house, and they don't understand why their yard is really thin now. And one reason that happens is because as the trees get taller, now there's more shade on your yard. So maybe part of the discussion has to be, how much shade do you have? Because there's different types of seed that are better for shade tolerance. And if there's a lot more, depending on the tree, there could be more acid that gets into the yard. There's a lot of variety of variables that happens. So trying to get new seed into the grass is extremely, extremely important. So if you think about, a lot of people will call us and they say, hey, I want my yard to look like a golf course. Well, one, that's never going to happen. And for two, golf courses, they aerate and seed and perforate their fairways and greens multiple times throughout the year.
Absolutely.
And if you've never aerated your yard before, like, we need to start there.
Yeah.
Typically, aeration is like the secret sauce.
It really is.
You know, to a great fertilization program, if you're mowing at the right height, if you're watering enough, like, aeration is like that missing link to having a great lawn. And as Casey just mentioned, you know, like the life of that grass turns over. Just as humans, at some point, we're going to all die. Grass does the same thing. Like, it has a lifespan. And if we're not putting new grass into it, like, your yard's going to start to get thinner and thinner and thinner, and that's where the weeds pop up.
The invasives.
And then, so then you're trying to tackle all the weeds that are coming up with just weed control, but the best weed control is sometimes
a thick, healthy lawn.
A thick, healthy lawn. So that environmental, area, we can get more grass in there. The more grass is going to keep all the weeds out.
Absolutely.
So aeration is crazy, crazy, crazy important. So we offer 2 different varieties of aeration.
Yes.
A single pass and a double pass.
Correct.
And we always recommend the double pass, right?
Always.
But we also offer the single pass because, as I put it, a little bit of aeration is better than no aeration at all.
Absolutely.
And the more holes that you get into the yard with a double pass means we can get more seed deep into the soil,
more oxygen, more space for those roots to grow, and more seed that is down in those aeration holes.
And so one question we get quite often is, all right, you guys have aerated and now it looks like goose poop. Looks like goose poop all over the yard. Are you guys going to come clean this up?
Absolutely not, Matt. Those plugs, that is natural soil. It's going to break down after about 15 days, especially with watering. and you're not even gonna notice it. Is it gonna look ugly the day you get it done? Absolutely. But it's not gonna last. Like I said, within 2 weeks, if you're watering properly, you shouldn't see any signs of those.
Right.
If you do see signs of those, it's probably a good indicator that you haven't been watering the lawn properly.
Right. And one way that you could tell if you are watering the yard enough is if you take a screwdriver and you can put it down through the grass till the base of it,
Yep.
like, you know that you're watering pretty well.
Yeah.
But if you try to put a screwdriver into the ground and it won't go,
You need some water.
you need some water. Now, what's really cool about what we're seeing right now in the weather is that it was super dry
Absolutely.
for a long period of time. And then all of a sudden, we've had what, like maybe 3 big rainstorms?
We've had a couple of good storms move through, yeah.
And like the grass is green again.
It's starting to green back up.
It's starting to green back
Yeah.
up. I mean, so that's how you can tell, like, just watering a little bit is better than none, but watering is that important.
It absolutely is, Matt. Water is the key ingredient to a healthy lawn. If you don't have water, your roots can't absorb nutrients. The grass is not going to be able to root deep enough to survive heat stress. The products that we put down aren't going to work the way they're supposed to, and your lawn's just it's going to fizzle out.
Right. And so now they kind of know a little bit more about aeration. And what is your recommendation? How often should they be doing this? Every year?
I recommend every year. Some people don't want to spend that much money on the turf. They are working with a budget. So minimum every other year.
But if you can, if you really want to get
Every year is
on,
ideal.
you really need to do it every year. But
Right.
every other year, it'll still be all right. So let's kind of transition a little bit
Sure.
and talk about seed. I mean, there's so many different varieties of seed, and we get a lot of people that say, "Oh, well, I can just go to Lowe's and buy some Scots," and it's half the price of your seed. Like, so why should they use our seed as opposed to going to Lowe's and Home Depot and just buying the run-of-the-mill seed?
Well, there's a couple of answers for that, Matt. Sure, you can go to Lowe's, you can buy seed all day long. Scott's is not a terrible brand to buy, but you really don't know what you're getting in that bag. It's going to give you a generalization of the species that's in there. It's also going to tell you inner ingredients and noxious weeds. I've not seen too many big box store labels that don't contain noxious weeds. And you're already paying for a lawn service to get rid of those weeds. Why would you want to reintroduce those weeds through your grass seed?
Exactly.
So what we use is a very specific blend of turf type tall fescue grass. It also contains that armament technology that we spoke a lot about at the beginning of the year that helps that grass to germinate and thrive after it's put down.
So with this armament technology, does that mean that they don't have to water?
No, absolutely not, Matt. The armament technology is more of a feeding system for that new grass. We are going to continue with your fertilization program. We are going to be limited on the weed control because new seed does not like weed control. We will spot spray if we need to. But what that armament technology does for this seed is it gives it a boost as it's germinating. When the seed splits open and that root starts to poke out, it has that food right there at its base available. It doesn't have to go searching and rooting around and looking for those nutrients. They're right there.
Right. We had a phone call last year, and a guy called us and talked to us about this armament technology. And he thought it was the biggest scam there is. And he said, "Oh, my buddy works for a competitor to your supplier, and the competitor said that this armament stuff is just a big waste of money. It's just a marketing scheme." And so he declined the seed that we bought, and he went and got his own seed. But the funny thing is that once we started using the seed with armament technology, I mean, we have like probably high 90% of all that seed actually surviving, germinating, and thriving into the next year.
Sure.
And when you're just putting basic seed down, like, you don't have that.
No.
And so your chances of getting that seed to grow drop significantly.
Absolutely.
When we switched to this, we got a lot less calls the next spring of, "Hey, this didn't take," because that is a very real possibility. I mean, the weather happens, different things happen that we have no control over. Like, some yards, they're not going to take as well as other yards.
Right.
And that's kind of a little bit out of our control. Some of those people don't have good fertilization programs. So that seed is going to, if you're not putting any fertilizer down, that seed is going to help you, that armament technology is going to help absorb all the nutrients that it can
Right.
and pull out of the surrounding soil, which the other seed can't do.
Correct. Another great thing about the label on these seed bags that we get, 100% turf type tall fescue. There are no fillers, there are no additives, there's no noxious weeds. You're getting 100% of the grass that you pay for.
Right. And why do we use turf type tall fescue?
So, of the cool season grasses, each one has its own set of positives and negatives, things that it's great at handling, and conditions that it's not so great at handling. Turf type tall fescue seems to be the stronger of the group. It holds up to traffic better, it can withstand drought stress better, and it stands up to some of the funguses that would normally harshly affect a bluegrass lawn.
Right.
So what's going to happen is when we get into August and early September and we're seeing all these stresses, that turf type tall fescue is going to remain green a little bit longer. You're going to have a little bit less issue with it as far as funguses. Now, if you're not treating the lawn and you're not adhering to a watering schedule and a mowing schedule that you should, any grass is going to have problems. But this turf type tall fescue is far and beyond superior to just about anything else
Right.
that's on the market.
And so we're also going to send all of our customers that we put seed out with, we're going to send them watering instructions.
Aftercare.
Exactly how much that you need to see, or how much you need to water. And that goes, I want to say to 8 weeks afterwards.
Correct.
And so when you get the seed, or we put the seed in, as soon as you get it wet, you have to keep that seed wet.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want it to dry out. And I mean, it's just going to ruin the actual germination percentages of how good it does.
Absolutely.
And so we'll send you that. We also send you pre-care instructions, like, hey, things that you probably don't talk about or think about as often, like marking sprinkler heads, marking any underground wires that might be there. Like those types of things, we will send you all that to remind you. We'll let you know the date that we're coming out. If we have to reschedule, like these are things that most companies don't have the time or they don't even bother with.
Right.
Especially the pre-care instructions. I don't know any company around here that sends out pre-care instructions.
The pre-care is probably the most important.
And only half of them might do post-care instructions, like how much to water. And then you're left trying to fend for yourself. So that's a lot of the importance of it. One quick story before we wrap this up is we had a customer that they had some type of grass, it was bent grass that was undesirable. So we killed that bent grass that was in the lawn. And then we let them know that, hey, we're putting turf type tall fescue in, it's better seed. But it didn't match the rest of the bluegrass that they had.
Right.
And so turf type tall fescue takes longer to germinate, usually 14 to 21 days to actually start coming out of the ground. So some people start getting a little frustrated with that. But anyways, at this point now, this is almost a year later, it's filled in pretty thick
Pretty
across.
well, yeah.
And they sent us some pictures. And it was kind of the later part of the summer. It was really hot, pretty dry. And the only thing that was still green in their yard was the turf type tall fescue.
That's correct.
All the bluegrass that they had was really brown. It wasn't looking very good. And we said, hey, you know what? I know it doesn't match. We will pull all this out and we'll put bluegrass in if you want. Or we can change your yard over to a turf type tall fescue lawn. You have to use less water because it roots deeper than everything else. And it stays greener longer because it's more drought resistant because it gets deeper roots. And so that customer decided to now aerate and overseed the entire property with turf type tall fescue to get more of that in. And it's going to take a couple of years to change over the whole program, or the whole property. But
Right.
at the end of the day, it's going to look a heck of a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it might look a little funky during that transition, but that's a good measure of how well this seed that we use, specifically in central Indiana, does.
Yeah.
So another big thing for us is the amount of seed that we put in the lawn.
Yeah.
How much seed do we actually put down during an aeration overseeding?
Well, Matt, we're going to put down 5 pounds of seed per 1,000 square feet on your lawn. That's tremendously greater than what a lot of our competitors do. A lot of our competitors are only putting down about 1 pound to 2 pounds of seed per 1,000 square feet. And that difference is tremendous.
And there is, we're not gonna lie, there is a difference in price. And we're probably gonna be a little bit more expensive, but we guarantee the seed type that we have, we guarantee the amount of poundage that we have. And what's interesting is all these seed manufacturers, they recommend 5 pounds of seed during an overseeding. But some of our, now, we do have some really good competitors that do put 5 pounds out. That's for sure, and they use TurfTalk fescue. But there's a lot of competitors out there that are trying to make better margin by putting worse seed down. Like, they might not even be using TurfTalk fescue. They could be using some really cheap junk seed.
Contractor blend.
Yeah, if it's a contractor blend, like, I would definitely, if you got a price that's pretty low, I would ask them, what kind of seed do you use, and how much seed are you actually putting on my lawn?
Absolutely, those are 2 things that you definitely want to know with an aeration.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing
It is.
to deal with. Do you have anything else to add to the aeration seeding?
No, the only thing I would add to you, Matt, is I would touch on some of that pre-care. One of the most important things that you can do for your pre-care, if we haven't had any natural rainfall, is break that sprinkler out and water all those areas that we're going to aerate, so that we can allow those tines
To get deeper.
penetration. If it's been hot and dry, the ground sets up like concrete, and even the weight of that machine isn't enough to get good penetration. So if you want good penetration and you want good results from your aeration, make sure you're watering for a couple of days before we come out.
Right. No, that's absolutely one of the most important things to do. And you'll get these pre-care instructions well in advance. So you should be able to spend a day or two getting water on the lawn, and then
Absolutely.
the day before, don't put any water on the lawn, because, and our machines will do a much better job for you. And one thing is, we use hydraulic machines
Correct.
where possible. Now, if you have a backyard that's fenced in, we can't get our bigger machine in, we will use a smaller machine back there that doesn't, it's just the weight of the machine. But in the front, one thing that is different about us is that we have hydraulic aerators, so it's like hydraulic pressure pushing those tines into the ground, so we can guarantee good penetration, unless it's in a backyard, like we said, and we can't get that machine in some backyards. So that's it for Turf Talk, going over aeration seeding. If you guys have any questions at all, make sure to put your comments below, and we'll bring that up on the next Turf Talk, and or we will just answer them in the comments. So if you guys do, leave comments, and we'll see you next time.
See you on the lawn.